What is up, guys? Christmas has come and passed, which means that it is definitely time for me to fill your asses in on what has been going on. You're gonna get the Q&A from post-show. I got a little recipe up my sleeve that I wanna share with you guys, as well as you're gonna get the judges' feedback. Now, I was gonna go over my reverse in this video, but honestly, that needs its own video to itself. So expect that in the future, but let's go and check out what I got for you guys. Okay, it is time to talk the judges' feedback, and honestly guys, I want you to remember that I am in this sport because I want to continue to grow. Did I bring a good package to stage? Absolutely. Could I have done better? Absolutely, okay? And that's the whole point of getting the judges' feedback, is to make sure that you are growing and that you are continuing to push yourself to be better than you were the show before, the day before, all of that good stuff, okay? So one thing that I want to note is that bodybuilding is not just about having the best physique on stage. And I think I'm a really great example when it comes to that. So when we look at my placings, I took a first in true novice, a first in novice, and a second in my height class when it came to naturals. When it came to the open, I was able to get third in my height class. Now, the thing is that I was not the most conditioned person on stage, but the reason why I feel like I took those placings is because of the fact that I had the whole package that they were looking for. So maybe my physique wasn't number one, but maybe I nailed my posing better than somebody else. Maybe my suit looked better than somebody else. The tan, the hair, the presence, my smile, all of those things bring together the entire package, and it's not just necessarily about being the most shredded person on stage. So I am really thankful that I got the judges' feedback because it's given me direction on where to take my training in this next year. I was blessed to be able to qualify for the natural pro qualifier show as well as the open. I'm not totally sure if I will try my chances on the open in 2021 or not, or if I'm just gonna stick to the naturals, but time will tell on how my physique shapes. So when we're looking at what needs to be changed about my physique, well, when we look at the judges' feedback, a majority of the feedback came back that I was soft. Now, that might be hard for some people to take when they look at my pictures, but at the same point too, they are looking for a much more muscular and leaner physique when it comes to wellness, right? So my core was not conditioned enough. It needed to be tighter, it needed to have a bit more definition, as well as I needed to make sure that I was controlling my breathing. Now, I was nervous, and you could tell that I did improve each time that I stepped on stage, but like, damn, I was breathing in and out so hard. Definitely was not controlling it, but I just remember like being in those poses for so long. I was literally like asking in my head, I'm like, please, can we just change positions? Like, I just need to change positions right now. So you know, flexing is hard, and I'm not surprised that I needed work on my breathing. So I'm going to be able to do that through vacuum exercises and just making sure that I have more core strength. So tightening that core and bringing more definition is definitely a main focus of mine. But then we're going to bring it down to my quads. Now, my quads were also soft. They would like to see a little bit more size on them, like to see more of a sweep in the quad. They don't want anything crazy, and that's the tough part about wellness, is that it's really a fine line on certain things of making sure that you're conditioned enough but not over conditioned to push you to the next category, right? So when it comes to the lower half, we definitely want to see more muscular development than bikini. So that's where I really need to bring it home, is making sure that I'm showing that I can put on that lean muscle mass, and that I'm really giving the definition that they're looking for, right? So the quads, like I said, needed that deeper sweep, and obviously when you flip me over to my behind, it's all connected in the long run. So then that meant that my hamstrings were too soft. And with my hamstrings being too soft, it meant that there was not enough of a tie, aka no tie, to my glutes. So we need to make sure that that bad boy comes through before I step on stage. And like, they're not looking for anything crazy again, but they want to see that definition. They want to see the tie to the glutes. So when it comes to my glutes, they were happy with the roundness, they like the plumpness, but they would like to see more definition. So essentially I need to continue to grow them while tightening them at the same time. And although that seems like a crazy challenge, I'm definitely up for it, and it excites me to think about what I can bring next year with focusing on what they've told me that I need to do. And at the end of the day, it's just tightening. It's making sure that I'm having definition coming while also putting on a little bit of mass, right? Like I need to make sure that as I'm tightening my behind, I'm not losing any of that size. I need to make sure that I'm building on my quads. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what this next year is going to bring, because one thing that I think is really important to note with everybody is that I did not coach myself because I thought that I knew it all, or I thought that I didn't need somebody else's expertise. I decided to coach myself this year because financially it was something that I knew was going to be the only way to make it happen. But more than anything else, it was the fact that I have done so much schooling years before I even started as a personal trainer to make sure that I was educated, because I'm one of those people who is structured. I like to make sure that I feel confident before I go into something, because at the end of the day, learning from a mistake, you always learn a lesson, right? Or at least most of us learn a lesson when we make a big mistake, but nobody really likes learning that way. So I always try to make sure that I'm as prepared as possible going into any situation, so that I don't have to learn from my mistakes necessarily, if that makes sense. So when it comes to 2021, I have not decided if I am going to be hiring a coach or not, because one question that I got is if I'm going to continue competing. And yes, I'm definitely going to continue competing, and I am going to be going and trying for the pro qualifier show that I qualified for. But again, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be doing it in both the naturals and the open, but I really want to give myself the next couple of months to see what I can do with my physique now that I have this feedback. And you know, I think that sometimes I don't know if there's somebody who could push me harder than I do, honestly. And when I think about, you know, when I think about about hiring a coach, I think of what a long interview it would be, just because I think that this journey has really taught me a lot about myself, and what my capabilities are as a coach. It has made me step back and view myself from someone else's eyes, because I can tell you guys that as soon as I stepped off stage, I talked to some of the people who are closest to me, and immediately I just listed off all the things that I thought needed work, and they were the exact same things as what the judges told me. So I'm obviously not seeing through clouded eyes, which is great. And I think that to be able to coach yourself, you need to be able to see through someone else's perspective and really take yourself out of your head, I guess is the best way to put it. So I don't know what is going to be up for 2021 on who's coaching me, but I can tell you that I'm looking after my own off season right now and really just trying to build the package that I can while making this decision on if I want to have it off my mind and just let somebody else deal with it, or if it's something that I'm still wanting to be in control of for this step of the journey. So we'll see what ends up coming together. When it comes to posing, I need to work on my front pose. That was one thing, was that my stance was too wide. They would like to see it closer together to draw in my waist and have it look more elongated, as well as just that breathing, because at the end of the day, my side pose was good, my back pose was good. So pretty much we're just going to be changing everything from underneath the boobies down. Otherwise, my shoulders are good. I need to make sure that I'm not overtraining them. They are getting to a point, at least when I was stage lean, where they were almost a little too striated. So I want to make sure that I don't try to push any more growth on that and just try to keep them where they're at. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to be changing underneath the chest down and see where it goes from there. So that is the judges' feedback. They said that if I make these changes, that they think that I'll have a strong finish at the next level. So I hope so too, guys. And that is going to conclude the judges' feedback. Now it's time for me to teach you guys how to cook my famous pumpkin protein pancakes. So it's super simple and only a couple ingredients. So the first thing that you're gonna need is your oil. So I always like to mix my oil in directly because I find that it gives a much more even non-stick cook to it, which is great. So I like to use avocado oil. Now you can adjust this recipe to fit your macros however you like. It is a really high protein recipe. So if you don't need as much protein as what I'm about to make in this, then just make sure that you adjust it to what you need, okay? So right now we are gonna start with 7 grams of avocado oil. So we zeroed out the scale with the cup. Went a little bit too much. This is classic, what it looks like all the time in my kitchen, pouring back and forth. Oh, and now we're one short because it never wants to meet you in the middle. Okay, so it took a couple of minutes to get us at the 7 grams of avocado oil, but we got it. We're gonna zero out that scale again, and now we're gonna add our pumpkin. So the thing is that I just used the pure pumpkin from the can. When you open it up, make sure that you put it in a glass container and then label it for the date that it is today and then a week from that, and then that's how long it will generally last. If it's sealed nicely, you can like smell it and make sure that it's still good to go if you want to push past that week. I have done it before, but that's what the general public recommends, is about a week for your pumpkin. So I like to put 2 servings in here, which is 150 mils. The next ingredient is going to be our protein powder. So I like to use diesel. I find it blends really nicely. So we're gonna use a full serving. Pretty much any protein powder will work good for you. I like to use a peanut butter flavor for this particular recipe. But again, you can adjust how you like. Okay, so we are at what we need for protein. And now it's time to grab the eggs. Okay, so we got some leaky egg whites going on here. It's fabulous, but that's okay. We have the scale zeroed out again, and we're gonna add about 150 grams of egg whites. Now the thing is that you don't have to use egg whites. You can use eggs, but just keep in mind that eggs are higher in fat, so you just need to make sure that if you're adding the oil and you have a full egg, that you're managing your fat macros appropriately, okay? So the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add some extra flavor in there. So I do like to add some liquid stevia, so I just do about 3 or 4 drops. Then I like to add some cinnamon to go along with the pumpkin. So just toss some of that in there. And then the other ingredient that I don't have right now that I usually always put in there as well is allspice. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put the lid on our little blender here, and we're gonna blend this up, and then we're gonna put it in the frying pan. Okay, so we got the batter into the pan, and of course, no macros going wasted, so I scrape every little bit off that I can. But what I did was I made sure that the pan was preheated before I put the batter in there. So then I turned it down to low, so on my stove it's like in between 2 and 3 that I usually let this cook at. And then once the batter's in there, then what I want you to do is cover it with something. So you can either use a lid, you can use another frying pan, and just balance it on there and let it cook. Now it's gonna take about just under 10 minutes to cook. So what you're gonna do is you are gonna take a fork and you're gonna test it out just like you test cookies. And if you can stick your fork in and there's no batter that comes out on the fork, then you know that your pancake's ready to go. So I'm gonna let this bad boy cook up and then I'll show you guys how it's finished. Okay, so here's the pancake all finished. Now, the thing is that I know it doesn't look that pretty, but I'm here to eat my food. I don't know about you. So this recipe is super, super low carb. Really, the only carb count that you're getting is if there's any in your protein powder, as well as the pumpkin that you're using. Now, right now on my reverse, I need all the carbs. So I have added some oats underneath there to go along with the meal, and then I have a cucumber to pair with that too. Some people like to top their pancakes with syrups and different stuff like that. So the odd time I will use like a calorie-free syrup. Now, In a future video, I'm gonna go over what calorie-free syrups actually are, what labels actually mean, and what my opinion is on artificial sweeteners and regular table sugar. So expect that one in the future, but I did add some extra carbs on there. I just warmed up some frozen fruit and some frozen avocado because that's what I needed to hit my macros, and that is my meal, okay? So keto friendly, great for low carb, great if you just need to get a high protein meal into you, but you can also adjust to make it fit your macros. Okay, so it is time to chat the Q&A. So what I did was, when I was going on the road to the show, I asked my Instagram followers what were some of the questions that they had for me when it came to prep, the actual show, or anything else that they really wanted to know. So I drafted up a couple of questions here from their responses, and the first question that I'm gonna answer is, what was the hardest part of prep? And honestly, I have to say that the hardest part of prep for me was peak week. I know a lot of people prepare themselves for the post-show blues. I did not have post-show blues, but what I did have was peak week blues. Now, I don't think a lot of people really talk about this, and I think that there's a lot of pressure and stereotypes that are put on peak week, which make it that much more stressful for people, especially when you're on social media. There's so many posts, you're talking about food, you know, do you feel like you're ready enough? Are you a zombie? Are you zombied enough? Like, there's so many thoughts that are being put out there that I feel like it makes it easy to get confused on your confidence, okay? So I thought that with the energy that I had throughout prep, with just the mindset that I had throughout prep, that peak week was gonna be my strongest week yet. And honestly, mentally, it was my weakest. I was second guessing myself. I was, you know, just wondering if I was tired enough. Did I put enough into it? Like, I was asking myself all of these really silly questions instead of just focusing on what I knew. So I actually pulled my head out of social media a little bit that week. I also listened to a whole bunch of music, just tried to keep myself focused with tunnel vision, and eventually I was able to bring myself back, especially when we were getting on the road and it was starting to feel like a real experience. So that was the hardest part of prep for me. The next question that I have is, what is your favorite workout and exercise? So generally I would say back or shoulders. Favorite exercise, probably rack pulls for back and Arnold's for shoulders. But the thing is that I am looking at life with a different perspective. I know that my back end is the area that I need the most work, which actually means that now my favorite workouts are my hamstring and glute days, just because of the fact that I am so excited to see what I can do with my body, that I'm just kind of like, meh, shoulders, back, whatever, but now it's like this whole new challenge and experience with hamstrings and glutes. So that is my new favorite workout. My fave exercise with it right now, honestly, is probably banded hip thrusts, just because there's so many different variations that you can do. There's lots of exercises that I'm doing right now to help strengthen my hip stabilizer muscles. So that's my fave right now. Then we'll go over to the third question, which is, what is the #1 treat that you were excited for after show? Now, if you watched the show day video, you know that I didn't get off stage until like 11:30. Then because of COVID, everything was closed. So I didn't actually end up eating after show. Now, the thing is that I would have generally have gone for like a steak or something like that. I really just wanted to have a good meal and then a stuffed cookie. That's what I was looking for if I had my dream meal, but I didn't end up getting that, and that was okay. And honestly, moving forward on my next show, I do not want my quote unquote treat to be food focused after show. I really want it to be something bigger. Like, I want to take myself to the spa. I want to like do something that I haven't done for myself that's way more of a treat than what food is. My taste buds ended up changing with prep anyways, so I didn't actually crave half the crap that I used to before. So at the end of the day, I just felt like it's unnecessary, and if it's something that you feel like you want to do or you feel like you need, then that's great. But I think that bodybuilding actually creates a lot of food stereotypes, and also can create a lot of unhealthy relationships with food, just because of the fact of how much we emphasize on those post-show meals, in my opinion. Not going super deep into that one on this video. The The fourth question is, what is your favorite meal on prep? Now, my favorite meal, I think I actually documented for you guys in another video, and it was simple, honestly. It was oats with sea salt, cucumber, and egg whites with salsa and cherry tomatoes, and that was enough to keep me satisfied. It was the savory that I needed, and I really enjoyed the mix of the crunch and just like softness of the oats. So the other question, so question number 5 is, how was your experience? And honestly, guys, for it being 2020, for it being COVID, for there being 2 shows put in one day, for competing in 2 shows when I thought that I was only going to compete in 1, for traveling for my first show, all of it was amazing, and I wouldn't change a thing. Like, we were waiting in a vehicle for like 18 hours, I swear to goodness, but I would do it for like another 48 just to have that experience again. It was so much fun. The organizers did a great job putting it on, in my experience. Like, there is no easy way to deal with any large event when it comes to 2020, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people just need to recognize that, you know, everybody's trying to do their best. It's all new guidelines and circumstances that we've never had to adjust to before. So I just feel very blessed with how many shows were canceled throughout the year that I was able to compete. So definitely an amazing experience. And the last question that I am going to go over is, would you do it again? So as I mentioned in the judges' feedback video, absolutely I'm going to be competing again. My hopes are 2021, as long as I can build my package the way I want to feel confident going on stage that I'm going to take a placing. So that covers the Q&A from post-show. So I hope you guys learned a little bit, and that is actually going to conclude today's video. So I'm sorry it took so long to get this one out to you guys. I promise I got lots of good stuff coming up way sooner. So I will catch you guys then.